Sixth meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment, what could be potentially our last meeting scheduled. Is any member seeking recognition would like to recognize guests? Okay. Senator?
I've got a judge here. He's 12-year-old. Luke King was elected. Then his wife married him after he was elected. No, I'm kidding. Luke and y'all stand up. They're from Cumberland County. That's my district, and I'm very proud to point them out for you. Thank you.
Well, let's make them feel welcome. Any other member? All right, just a reminder, everyone, if you could, take a second, silence those cell phones, members and audience, if you don't care, and we'll call the roll.
Senator Boswell, Senator Funk-Frommeyer, Senator Girdler, Senator Howell, Senator Madden, Senator Nunn, Senator Thomas, Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise. Representative Bowling. Representative Callaway. Representative Duval.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Griffey. Representative Grossel, Representative Huff, Representative Jackson,
Present.
Representative King,
Present.
Representative Kulkarni, Representative Lawrence, Representative Lehman,
Here.
Representative Lockett,
Present.
Representative Payne,
Here.
Representative Sharp,
Present.
Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present.
Representative Truitt, Co-Chair Wheeler, here. Co-Chair Branscombe.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. I would also like to take a minute to introduce Sammy Gerhardt. She will be working with our committee, so let's welcome Sammy. Glad to have her. All right, on the agenda here, we have approval of October minutes. To have a motion to approve. To have a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Minutes pass. Just want to remind members, we have a full agenda and presenters. We have a full agenda today, so let's try to keep it timely. We will call up our first presenters, putting young Kentuckians to work, giving us a first-year update. If you all could come to the table. All of our presenters, if you don't care, make sure to pull the mic up to you and make sure your green light is lit up on your microphones. If you could, just introduce yourselves for the record.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for allowing us to come today. My name is Myra Wilson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Cumberland's Workforce Development Board, and I want to thank all my colleagues that are here in the room, as well as the colleagues online watching our presentation today, along with my board chair, Mr. Jeff Van Hook, he's here in the room, and Cumberland County Judge Executive, Judge King, and we really appreciate it. And before Michael does the introduction, I just want to tell you a really heartfelt thanks to all of you for investing in us and the lives that you've changed around the Commonwealth. We truly appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Michael Gritton. I'm the Executive Director of Kentuckiana Works, which is what the Workforce Development Board in the Louisville area and the 6 counties around it is called. I also want to just acknowledge I have 6 board members in the room Michael Hesketh from Shelby County, Kyle Hurwitz from the University of Louisville, Kim Blanding from Norton Healthcare, Kelly Gold, our partner at GLI, the Chamber of Commerce, Bill Miller from the Teamsters Union, and Jonathan Westbrook, our board chair from Easton Westbrook and from Oldham County. So that collection of people represents what workforce boards are, which is business leaders, educators, nonprofit partners, and chambers of commerce all working together to solve workforce challenges. We have a short presentation, Mr. Chairman, we promise, and we have a very short video also at the very end. Let me just start, and then I'll hand it to Myra, just to reframe for you all who we are and what we do. Workforce boards are created by a federal law called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. But the challenge for us is federal investment is just slowly but surely decreasing in terms of giving the Commonwealth of Kentucky money to solve workforce challenges. So when we came to you 2 years ago, we were describing the challenge of both the number of disconnected young adults, young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who weren't working and weren't in school, and also the number of high school kids that needed assistance to try to get connected to a good job when they graduated. So thankfully, 2 years ago in HB 1, you all gave the workforce boards $10 million a year over each of 2 years, and that money flowed directly to Kentuckiana Works, and we in turn created contracts with each of the other 9 workforce boards around the state. So what you see on the map is that is the 10 workforce board areas. We have contracts with all 10 of those. Now I'm going to let Myra describe to you what we've done with that investment. And again, to second her, we are extremely grateful for that investment. That's why these board members and workforce directors are all here in the room.
Thank you all. Thank you all. The flexibility of the funding that you all allowed us to receive, it addressed the specific needs of employers in our area and created a workforce pipeline that they hadn't seen before. Our end goal at the end of our fiscal year is to have 3,600 job placements, and that's what we're all 10 working toward. On the next slide, we talk about the need is great and remains ongoing, but the fact that our youth are disconnected is undeniable. There are some areas on this slide that I do want to address that I think it's key for you all to see. The first bullet, the 12% of the state young adults disconnected from work and school in 2023, that's 64,000 people. The last time when we testified for you all, it was 77,000 people. So you do see a decrease, but that need is still very significant across our Commonwealth. And then the information that we took from the Kentucky Chamber regarding 2/3 of the employers don't have an ample supply of trained workers. You all know this. You hear it from people across the Commonwealth and from other places, as well as it's a policy priority I've heard from the Chamber as well. Workforce is something that we can't solve with one entity. We all have to work together to solve the workforce crisis that we're facing in the Commonwealth. Next, our youth enrollment growth shows a promising pipeline that's full of potential. So let's just talk about this and give you all a little bit of context. As you can see, our numbers really started to move around January, and they're continuing to climb. These are enrollments. So when we say enrollments, this is people that we've put into the system that we're using to track them. The enrollments had to come through part of the schools that we didn't have relationships with, and this is high schools, area technology centers, and there's 50 area technology centers around the state. But we had to establish relationships, if they were not already established, to have a foundation in order to create this pipeline, especially when you're trying to tap into the high school seniors and those that have already graduated. So establishing those relationships took us a moment, but now we have that foundation to continue forward. The next slide shows you where we're at with job placements, 1,218 as of October 2025. You can see our numbers significantly begin to increase in the summer, and they're continuing to climb. The data is changing daily because people are entering information into the system, and we know that the numbers are continuing to increase. On the next slide, these are the October results by area. This is the number of people and the pay rate, the average pay rate when you average those together. As I said, these continue to change daily, and as people are either graduating short-term employment or getting the employment from the credential that they received, those numbers increase. We've seen people that had life-changing events. It's a pleasure to get to work with these people, to hear what's happened and what's changed their lives and how it's going to change generations to come. Next, we have a short 3-minute video. This doesn't represent all areas. We didn't have time to put all areas in it, but gives you a little bit of a flavor of what's happening around the Commonwealth.
By putting young Kentuckians to work, this funding source has been nothing but a godsend for individuals that would never have been able to step foot into a college and be provided an occupational training due to the fact of the cost. The return that you're going to get from this investment of investing in 18 to 24 years of age is a wonderful workforce. And through these program services and funding, we are able to do that.
I felt like stuck in my career, and so having someone behind me to motivate me to further my education, further my career, it opened up a lot of room for me to explore new careers.
The work is important because it helps younger people like me. I didn't really know opportunities was out here like this, but the spot really has opened my eyes. Well, not just a career path, it also helped me for temporary jobs that I needed at a certain time.
I think it really helps like younger people like me and like my generation really get the help and guidance they need, because school can only give you so much, but we're not making resumes and cover letters at school. And so they really sat down and gave you something that you are going to apply to the rest of your future. You are going to use that in every single job interview you go to. You are going to use that in every single job you get. And so it really helped me just get a better grasp of what I was doing. I'm very, very thankful.
I'm hoping to find the right career path and then find other ways to, help myself and family and stuff like that. So just being a little bit of an entrepreneur in all of my things.
It made me feel a lot more stable with my decisions. I wasn't scared of going out and doing things because I knew that I still had this job. I'd still be able to afford the things that I need to do. It just helped really keep stability so I wouldn't have to stress out about it.
The program is very important to Kentucky as a whole because it is changing people's lives and they're able to have a career that they're proud of.
I'm a dedicated worker who just recently graduated from a Young Adult Opportunity Center.
My goal was to get a trade and get certified in that trade. And that's what they helped me with, and they've really impacted me by doing that.
I feel very proud and accomplished. I just want to have a house and have a family, and I feel like I have this good job now, and I'm one step closer to being able to achieve that goal.
Thank you all for taking time to watch that. And in the back of your package, you're going to find information that is for each local area. And as I said, we've got representatives in the room or on the line, or you can contact Michael or I specific for questions in your area. But at this time, we would like to end the presentation and take your questions, if that's okay.
Thank you all. And I know that there's some additional information in each member's packets to kind of talk about what's been going on in each one's regions. One question I have is, when you look at the enrollment chart, or I say the enrollment, I guess that would be the placement chart. You can kind of see, I like the way the curve is moving. I mean, that's a good thing. What has been the largest barrier to entry as far as you guys getting up and going? Because what have you been, a year probably, getting things going?
I think what Myra described is we described to you all that we wanted to work with high school seniors in high schools all around the state. Many of us knew our high school folks, but we were not in those high schools at all, Mr. Chairman. So just figuring out how to do that, and it's different in different counties. I'll describe in my area, we have a couple of staff people that are working in Jefferson County Public School high schools for the first time, but we also created contracts with some of our school districts. And this is really not something they've ever done before. They focus mainly on getting kids to graduate, but they hadn't been thinking much about what to do to help them get a job. Now we're helping them change that and then bringing employers to the table to try to build pathways between the two. So it took a while just to get schools to think differently about how to do the work, for us to figure out how to execute it. And again, part of the beauty of working through 10 different workforce boards is some of our boards already had great relationships with high schools. Our colleagues in EK-SEP in Eastern Kentucky were already in many of their high schools, so they're using the money to pay for sort of paid internships that are helping kids get real experience even before they graduate. So the flexibility really helped, but for a lot of us, we had to find those high school kids and build the capacity to try to enroll them for the first time. That's why you see the chart moving up, and we expect it to continue.
Okay. Representative Payne.
Thank you for your presentation, and I think maybe you touched on my question a little bit in that answer, but my question also centered around the enrollment slide where you see that uptick, and I think you attribute it to working with the 50 ATCs across Kentucky. My question was just, the majority of our career and technical education enrollment in high schools is at the local district instead of ATC. So I just wondered if you had any partnerships with our locally operated centers in addition to ATCs.
Absolutely, we do. And developing those relationships have been critical, partnering with KCTCS to help us in each area to try to get the trainings into the schools. It's been instrumental in what we're doing.
Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. A long time ago, I guess it's been 25 years. I can't believe it's been 25 years. I was a case manager at Bell Whitley Community Action Agency working in the Workforce Investment Act program. It used to be JTPA, now I think it's WIOA, doing this exact same thing. What's the difference? I mean, I think those programs are still around, and maybe I missed it in your presentation. If I did, I'm sorry, but what are you doing different from that, or is this just additional funds towards the same effort?
Well, so the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is the latest version, we love having people in the business who have done this and know what we're talking about. But the federal money we get really doesn't encourage us to serve high school seniors at all. It's really a small funding stream, and it's really designed for those disconnected young adults who are not in school and not working. So part of the pitch we made to you is we would love to serve these high school seniors. We get calls from high schools all the time to do it, but until you all invested through us, we didn't really have a way of saying yes to that. So that was part of the challenge. And a lot of times we were waiting for kids to graduate and then to wander into being disconnected, and then they would come and we would be able to try to serve them. But because the federal money has been shrinking, a lot of my colleagues don't have a lot of funding to even run a program for young adults, which is the other reason we ask for this money to be flexible to be able to serve them too. So it's both things. But what you see we're doing is a lot of what you would have done. We're putting people into skilled training using the community college or doing short-term trainings like welding and CDLs and certified nursing assistants. So it's similar work, but a different funding stream that allows us to serve more people and different people than the normal federal money.
Rep. Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for being here. I've always been supportive of programs that are designed to put people to work, contribute positively to society, especially disconnected youth. Question regarding disconnected youth, are there any programs at all or anything that includes like people with disabilities involved in that sector?
Mm-hmm. So through the Education Labor Cabinet, there is a cabinet that part of it that's called OVR, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and of course we work with those as well. And we also have what's called a SWAT team statewide. It's an initiative for the entire state to work together, all the workforce, anybody that's working with workforce basically. And I believe you all have heard testimonies from Secretary Lincoln, Secretary Noel, and all of those people. But working together to use braided funding if we have to help anyone. But yes, and with the disability part, knowing that their funding's sort of on hold right now, we try to target those people too as they come through the door.
And just one brief follow-up, thank you. There was one slide that stood out to me. I believe it was talking about average pay rates of the ones you're putting in. seem to vary between 12 and 18 something dollars an hour across the different sectors or districts, and East Kentucky is quite low in $12 range. Is there any suggestions you guys have or anything we could do to improve that? It's not very much money in this day of and age.
Well, what you see is a variety of things that we're doing. So when you're working with high school kids and getting them connected straight to work, the pay rate you would expect to be a little lower. But again, as we're partnering with ATCs and other kinds of skilled training the kids are getting in high school, I think you'll see those wage rates move up over time. But some of our colleagues are also using it to provide those sort of specific trainings and things like CDL and welding and CNA. And for those young adults, the wage levels are higher. So part of what we're doing with this money is learning what works and what doesn't and how we can get wage rates to move up over time. But mostly wage rates are based on skills. So the more we're either working with the kids that are earning skills, and there are all these great things happening in high schools across the state to build more specific skills in high school, I think over time we'll see those wage rates move up. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Any other member? Okay. Thank you all very much for your presentation. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you here in a few months, maybe once session gets going, and get you back up here to give us an update. But really do appreciate y'all being here.
Terrific.
Thank you all.
All right, next up, Kentucky Talent Attraction Initiative. We're going to have two presenters at the table, but I believe we will also have some folks on Zoom. So those at the table, go ahead. You can introduce yourselves for the record.
Good morning. I'm Shelby Somerville. I'm the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs and External Relations at Greater Louisville, Inc., the Louisville Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, good morning. I'm Andy Johnson. I'm the Chief Policy Officer and the Director of Regional Engagement for Commerce Lexington.
Okay, and you all can either introduce the people on Zoom or they can introduce themselves if they can hear us.
Well, Chairman Branscombe, are you okay if we do just a quick intro into this topic and then I can introduce the
floor is yours.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having us. Good morning again. We're excited to be here and talk about talent attraction. As I said, my name is Shelby Somerville. I'm with GLI. Just want to give you a brief history on this. As you may recall, in the last budget cycle, the General Assembly allocated $250,000 for the state to hire a consultant to build out a comprehensive strategy around talent attraction specifically. Kentucky does a great job when it comes to marketing ourselves for tourism and economic development, but historically there hasn't been a targeted talent people campaign. And so, as you all know, we need talent in Kentucky. We have good talent here, but we also need to bring in new talent and new residents to the state. So LRC contracted DCI, who I'm going to let Andy introduce, to build out this strategy. And they've been working over the last several months statewide, hosting stakeholder meetings and really hearing from everyone around the state on what this should look like, how much it might cost, what they should target, etc. So we're going to hear from them. We're really excited about this. GLI has been doing talent attraction work for several years through our Live in Lieu initiative, and we think a state strategy is very important. So I'm going to let Andy introduce DCI, but just want to say we're excited to hear everything that's going on today.
Thank you, Shelby. Something else we want to highlight is that there are more than 13 organizations from across the state representing economic development, tourism, chambers of commerce, industry associations that support this initiative. We've been talking with these groups over the last 2 years, and they really do see the value in having a statewide, people-focused talent attraction strategy that aligns both our job creation messaging, our job assets, with our quality of place assets. Both of these are strengths for Kentucky, but what we're finding out is people do not know about all of these assets and what are unique to our regions as well. So having that umbrella strategy that can also elevate our unique regions is really the goal of this effort, and making that information easy for people to access and find. Commerce Lexington has been working with DCI Development Counselors International out of New York for 3 years on a regional talent attraction strategy for our 9-county region. That includes Lexington, all of our surrounding counties, including Franklin County. We've really followed a similar process to what you're going to see DCI present for the state, and we're finishing that 3-year strategy now, and we really have seen a significant amount of success in raising awareness of the 9-county Bluegrass region as a place to both live and work to those targeted audiences. DCI is nationally recognized in developing these place-based marketing strategies that really marry this tourism, economic development messaging. They've worked with regions, cities, states all across the country on these types of efforts, and they've even worked internationally. So they really are the best at this type of work. And so I would like to introduce Patience Fairbrother and Robin Domber. They are both key principals at DCI to share their initial research findings for Kentucky and their preliminary recommendations on what this strategy could potentially look like for Kentucky moving forward. One thing I will say is they are joining us virtually today from New York, but they have been in Kentucky for 2 weeks. They came for a full week at the end of August and did an immersion tour of the state, visiting all the different regions, engaging with focus groups to really learn about the unique regions of the Commonwealth. And then they also came back a couple of weeks ago and presented to the Budget Review Subcommittee on Economic Development, and then visited with various stakeholder groups across business, economic development, and tourism, again, to continue to get that feedback as they're developing this strategy. So with that, I will turn it over to Patience and Robin for the presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andy. And thanks for everyone today for having Patience and I here to provide a status update and recommended next steps on the talent attraction and retention strategy that DCI was contracted to conduct earlier this year. A bit about DCI before we move into the Kentucky specific information. We are a global research, public relations, and marketing firm, but we are unique in the fact that we focus on 3 distinct service areas: economic development, tourism, and talent attraction. And the reason for that is for more than 65 years, we have recognized that you cannot have one of these elements and systems in place without the other. Your travel and tourism industry brings people to the Commonwealth, and we always say that today's visitor is tomorrow's talent. If a company sees a strong talent pool, they will want to invest, which in turn helps build the infrastructure that makes the area a great place to live and visit and work, and that cycle keeps spinning. But at the end of the day, good talent definitely creates good corporate investment. In terms of our sampling of our talent clients that we have worked with previously, you can see some of those on the screen, and they really range everywhere from states all the way down to small regions and towns. I think the key takeaway for this slide, though, is that the diversity of our clients have demonstrated and taught us that there is not one size that fits all for talent attraction and retention marketing efforts. It has to be very customized, but most importantly, it also has to be very measurable and make sure we're demonstrating that return on investment regardless of the size of the organization that we're working for. The reason that talent attraction and retention is so important right now is that the U.S. is facing what's being called a demographic drought. And really what this refers to is we are seeing the exodus and the retirement of the baby boomer generation, and the birth rates are not keeping up with those replacement rates of that generational cohort. So we do have a shrinking labor force, and before the end of the decade, it's estimated that there will be a shortfall of roughly 6 million workers, which certainly puts pressure on the economic growth and competitiveness of the U.S. and states and commonwealths. Also, competitor states have been paying attention to this and are already investing heavily in talent attraction and retention initiatives. And you can see some of the states and their budgets on this screen. But we do want to be clear that we don't feel that you have to invest at these levels in order to have an effective program. And actually, we were recommending a much lower budget level that Patience will talk through. But the key takeaway here, again, is that other states have been paying attention to this. They have been investing at various levels. And we want to make sure that Kentucky remains top of mind in front of talent. As we mentioned, we have a very robust program, a four-phase process that we have been working our way through. Phase 1 and 2 has consisted largely of a solid and robust research foundation of both qualitative, quantitative, on-the-ground research, also extensive community and stakeholder engagement across the Commonwealth and all of the regions. We are wrapping up those two phases and are moving into our messaging framework, where we are building out the Kentucky's value proposition for talent and really what the narrative that we want to communicate to potential talent. And after that is complete, we will then be moving into the strategy and action plan of how to actually how we recommend actually getting that narrative out to talent and communicating Kentucky's strengths and opportunities from both a livability as well as a place to work. Just in terms of a very high-level summary of some of the research, and again, there is a 100+ slide deck that is behind these key findings that we encourage you to take a look at, but happy to answer any additional questions. But we identified both challenges and opportunities. The biggest sort of red flag that we found was that in our survey of internal talent, working age talent, we found that 47% could potentially be interested in relocating out of the state within the next 2 years, largely because they are not confident in the job and career opportunities and career advancement opportunities that would be available within the Commonwealth. As we know, the cost of lost talent does come it does impact the state. Every professional who wants to leave the state will take their spending power, their tax revenue, and most importantly, their families. And those represent the next generation of workers and that pipeline of talent that's so important to locationally active companies. We know that 67% of talent will not relocate without a job opportunity. And again, what we heard from our external surveys of key markets, target markets, is talent is just not confident, again, that Kentucky can provide those career and job opportunities. But meanwhile, you have a very, very strong cultural identity, very positive, but it tends to associate more around your livability assets, around bourbon and horses and tourism. So again, just lacking in that messaging around what Kentucky would be like as a place to live and work. Meanwhile, there's great opportunity. We did survey your internal higher ed students, and 96% of them report that they would like to stay in state if offered a full-time job. And that's great news for your employers. In an HR survey of Commonwealth employers, we did find that 72% plan to expand their staff in the next 2 years, but they need those, and there's an appetite for those marketing tools and resources that they can use to help communicate the strengths of Kentucky and really appeal to those relocating talent pools. We also know that you have a great opportunity appealing to those individuals that have some level of familiarity with talent or with Kentucky. So whether that be your students that have graduated and moved on, whether it's those who have previously visited, but 76% of external talent that are familiar with Kentucky would be interested in considering relocation to the Commonwealth. And that's a huge opportunity. So that boomerang audience is going to be a key target market. And again, you are very, very competitive in terms of those factors that we know are important to talent. So talent tends to prioritize very practical factors: housing, cost of living, quality of life, and by all accounts, from both our internal and external survey work and qualitative research, you are very competitive in those. So it's just a matter of making sure that that messaging is reaching the right audiences.
Okay, so as Robin said, a lot of data went into this, and ultimately what we've done is narrowed it down to 6 preliminary recommendations that we believe the Commonwealth should undertake over the next 3 years to ultimately address those challenges and to harness those opportunities from a talent perspective. So first and foremost, we believe you need to target the right audiences. The research confirmed that those who are familiar with Kentucky, your alumni, people who grew up in or went to school in Kentucky, are really a ripe audience. And so ensuring that this strategy is reaching those best bet audiences and that you're not trying to be all things to all people is a really important part of this next phase. The second piece, Robin touched on the fact that there's really a lack of a narrative when it comes to Kentucky as a place to live and work. Tourism marketing has done a great job of elevating the cultural identity of Kentucky as a place to visit, but what's missing is really that awareness of job opportunities, even among current residents. So we need to fill in those gaps, and we need to create a statewide narrative that's going to be powerful both for external and internal talent. Next, if there's one thing that became really clear during our on-the-ground research, it's that Kentucky, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for Kentucky regions. They're, really very diverse all the way from, Lexington and Louisville to Eastern Kentucky and Appalachia to the western part of the state. They all have really unique opportunities and challenges. So we're recommending tailored approaches to ensure that we're able to harness the strengths of the various regions and to appeal to the audiences that are going to most resonate with those value propositions. Next, we see a real opportunity to activate your ambassadors. Your current residents have the potential to be really champions for the Commonwealth, and currently they're lacking the tools and resources that they need to communicate that message. So a lot of what we're doing in this next phase is going to be building that toolkit for them so that it's really easy to activate them so that they can be the megaphone for Kentucky internally and externally. The fifth recommendation is really the biggest bucket. It's how do we get in front of these key audiences and how do we actually convert them into Kentucky residents? And this will be a multi-channel approach, largely leveraging digital resources, of course, a website, digital advertising, social media, public relations. And in this next phase, we'll be really building out exactly what that tactical plan looks like and where we recommend that the state invest. And finally, in order for this to be successful long-term, it needs the right operational infrastructure. So we're making recommendations, of course, around funding, which I'll talk about in a second. We need, a core team that's going to own this effort. And of course, we need KPIs. We need to know how to measure success, which I'll touch on here in a second. So ultimately, we did testify in front of the Budget Review Subcommittee, and we're recommending a one-time appropriation of $5 million over 3 years. So it's about $1.5 million per year. And the reason that we're designing this as a 3-year strategy is it's really the minimum amount of time that we recommend investing in this effort to really see results. Relocations do not happen overnight. These are big decisions that people are making. And so in order to really be successful and show some measurable results, we recommend that Kentucky invest in a 3-year initiative to accomplish these, what we've outlined in these 6 pillars. We do want to touch on measuring success. Ultimately, of course, our goal is to increase the working age population in Kentucky to fill the pipeline for Kentucky employers, but that economic data isn't readily available immediately. And so in the short and the midterm, we need metrics that are going to be able to showcase whether we are actually achieving success. So every aspect of our strategy is designed backwards from measurability. So all the way from awareness and perception of Kentucky, all the way down to action, which of course is applying for jobs, relocating, buying homes, etc. And just to give you a sense for some of the short, mid, and long-term metrics that we recommend tracking, in the short term, it really is going to be about those engagement metrics. So ultimately, the hope is to, once the strategy has been implemented, to come back and be able to report on the engagement that we're seeing. And really importantly, again, employer engagement and regional partner engagement, because if this isn't embraced widely throughout the Commonwealth, it won't go anywhere. And ultimately, a real end user for this effort is Kentucky employers who need to fill jobs. In the midterm, we can replicate the research that Robin just touched on in terms of our ability to move the needle on, are more people interested in relocating to Kentucky? Are we decreasing the desire of current residents to move out of the state? And are we improving ratings of Kentucky on select career and lifestyle factors? And of course, those confirmed relocations and success stories. Finally, in the long term, of course, we can look at the economic data, growth in working age population, increase in gross wages, increase in tax revenue, and then a slew of secondary economic metrics that we can look at to show that this is really making an impact on the Commonwealth. In closing, just a couple of case studies from other states and how they are approaching this challenge. Michigan is well known for their Pure Michigan campaign, one of the most successful tourism campaigns in the US. Through research with Michigan, we determined that similar to Kentucky, they have very positive perceptions as a place to visit and even live, but a real lack of awareness in terms of job opportunities. So their campaign, You Can in Michigan, leverages the assets of the Pure Michigan campaign, but the message is really around the future forward jobs that you can find in Michigan, and it matches users with both jobs and upskilling opportunities internally and externally to Michigan. Florida took a really regional approach. We worked with them to design a statewide campaign, Wonderful, but we also designed 8 regional campaigns, recognizing that the state is very diverse in terms of the assets it offers and the different audiences that are going to be interested in those various regions. And so all those regional campaigns ladder up to the statewide initiative, and this is something that we think Kentucky could replicate to a degree. And finally, Kansas took a very targeted approach in terms of their audience. They're going only after what we call boomerangs, so people who went to school in or grew up in Kansas. And it's really a love letter to former residents, inviting them to come back home, letting them know about all the things that have been happening in the state since they've been gone. And the message is, all that's missing is you. So this has been a successful effort, very new campaign, but they've already confirmed 30 families relocating back as a result of this initiative. Thank you very much. With that, we'd love to take any questions.
Thank you all. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks for joining us. I know it's by Zoom, but we know you've been traveling the state quite a bit as well, so appreciate you being here on the ground. Representative Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is a question from Ms. Domber or Ms. Fairbrother. I just want to confirm. About half of Kentuckians are told you they want to leave the state within the next 2 years.
So the specific question was, would you consider leaving the state? And yes, we did hear that 46% said, 46 or 47% did say that in most instances, it was largely because they just didn't have the confidence that Kentucky could offer the career and advancement opportunities. And if they were provided another job in another location that could potentially satisfy that those trajectories, they would consider moving.
Okay, and just from the other states you've worked with, similar questions. I mean, how does this compare?
It's high. It is a high percentage. We do. It does vary, and obviously we haven't done work in every state in the U.S., but just based on the ones that we have, that is a relatively high percentage reporting that they would consider relocation out of state.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Co-Chair Wheeler.
Isn't that a little bit in some ways stating the obvious? I mean, clearly, if somebody has an opportunity to earn a lot of money elsewhere, a lot of people will take up on that opportunity. I mean, I don't know that we have to spend a lot of money to figure that out. My father-in-law and several of his relatives and even some people in my mother's family back in the 50s went to Michigan for a while and worked in the auto plants up there, and then but frankly, they came back home the first chance they got to Kentucky. I mean, most of them did, a few stayed when they got the opportunity to do so. I frankly think most Kentuckians that I know are very attached to their home. And from what I've seen, there's been a lot of studies done that, and you could say this is good or bad, but Americans are the least mobile as far as changing the location of where they live than at any point in our nation's history. So that, what's the, there seems to be a little bit of disconnect about what we're getting presented here today and then some other stuff that you see out there.
I can chime in just about the study that you're referencing about Americans being the least mobile that they've ever been, because we dug into the data on that, and it's really interesting that it's really not painting a full picture. And really what it is that Americans are less mobile in terms of jobs. They're not switching jobs as frequently, but when you look at people who are moving, more than 100 miles from their previous residence, it's actually, pretty on par with what we've seen in the past. So I think there is definitely an opportunity to attract people externally. And what we're seeing is really driving relocation is primarily people are looking for a better quality of life. They're looking for safety. They're looking for cost of living. They're looking for housing that they can afford. And post-pandemic, that's really what's driving people to move. It's not job opportunities the way that it used to be. So that's a little bit of where that data is, that disconnect is with the data. For Kentucky, again, we see the opportunity, as you mentioned, that there are probably plenty of Kentuckians who would love the opportunity to come home, but they just don't know about the opportunities. And so if we can get in front of them proactively, invite them home, and connect them with the employers and the jobs that really are here that they're not aware of, that's going to be a low-hanging fruit for us. So trying to get those people back home, and then in addition to that, getting in front of people who might never have necessarily considered Kentucky because they didn't think of it as the kind of place that you can have a great career and a great life. And so really moving the needle on those perceptions, the same way that the tourism marketing campaign has done over decades, to drive visitation and to drive visitor spending, we can do the same thing from a relocation standpoint, and ultimately bring in the employees that employers currently so desperately need. And because of the demographic drought that we're currently in, doing nothing means continuing to see a dwindling workforce. So from our perspective, you have to take a proactive approach.
Thank you, Chair.
And I'll follow up on that. One question I have, when looking at these surveys, what is, I guess, who are the respondents to the surveys, and maybe a sample size on who that was?
Sure. So yeah, I can jump in there. So again, we conducted both external out of state surveys in 7 key markets where we feel you have your greatest opportunity from which to attract talent, and that was determined based on an exercise of looking at a whole range of secondary data in terms of where are your alumni concentrations, where are the industry and occupational concentrations, where are your visitors coming from, and then also where Kentucky can offer a competitive advantage on precisely those factors that patients mentioned around work and lifestyle. So it was 1,500 external respondents from those target markets. We also conducted an internal, and they were working age. So they were those individuals that are prime working age population. And then we also conducted several internal surveys among, again, that working age talent, your students enrolled at your post-secondary institution, and HR executives. But all told, between the surveys and the interviews and focus groups that we conducted, we reached over 2,500 individual unique respondents. And so again, a robust sample of both internal and external audiences.
Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to ask our representatives here from GLI and also Commerce Lexington, do you know how many open jobs that we have in the state of Kentucky right now?
I'm not sure the current stat as of today. We can get that information for you, though.
Well, I know that we have between 6,000 and 8,000 open jobs in our 10-county region where I'm at, that we do not have the people to fill those jobs. And we're probably the fastest growing city and area with 350 to 400 people moving in per month in Bowling Green and Warren County. And we still don't have enough people to fill those jobs. And so what's going to happen is companies are now asking, can you provide the workforce? We've done a lot with education in my mind, to try to do certifications and things like that to help, employers and work with employers. But it's become evident that we are not going to fill these jobs through education. We will fill some of them, but we have to attract from outside of our state. And this came home to me, what they were talking about, the perception of Kentucky outside of Kentucky. I was talking to a guy who relocated from Canada. I was in Arizona this past weekend visiting my daughter and granddaughter, and he was in the mining industry. And he looked at several different states and opportunities. He said there was opportunity in Kentucky, but he didn't really look at it real hard. But when I began to tell him about everything about Kentucky, he was amazed to find out that we had all of these things, that he's an adventurer type guy. And I was explaining all that to him, and he was like, oh, wow, I need to come visit. Because to me, Kentucky is like the pearl in an oyster. The oyster is the United States. We are the pearl. There's so much here in Kentucky that we have to offer. People just don't know about it. And so we see people moving out of a lot of the northern states they're moving out of California. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Arizona. You know, he was one of those that moved from up north to Arizona. And I don't know why. I mean, it's nothing but desert out there. But anyway, I just think that we need something like this, definitely, to try to attract more people into the Commonwealth as workforce.
Representative Duval.
Thank you, Chair. I am excited about this initiative. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. I know with Senator Wise, and we had some really great discussions around this. Kentucky has a lot to offer from Pikeville to Paducah. Yes, I think we are going to really have to emphasize those regional differences. I think that's a real key component to this plan. My question is, have you been working on a tagline and a logo for this initiative?
Yeah, great question. So what we're working on currently is sort of the foundation that would then lead to a campaign and a logo. So we're working on the messaging framework. So how do we communicate the value proposition of Kentucky? What are those elevator pitches, essentially? So that's what we're going to be presenting to the working group that we've assembled in December. And then in February, we'll be presenting the marketing strategy. So how do you activate that? And a very key initial piece of activating the marketing strategy will be creating that brand identity. So what is the campaign that's going to sell this? What's the logo, the visual identity, and then what's the digital infrastructure look like? So what does the website look like? So our project won't include the development of the brand, but that will certainly be a key phase of the implementation piece of this.
Thank you.
Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is related probably more to the DCI representatives. On your handout here, you're talking about target talent markets, and it looks like 4 of the target markets are border states, so that makes a lot of sense. Can you expand a little bit on why California, Texas, and Florida are your target talent markets?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we did the exercise to identify those markets, we looked at a whole range of secondary data. One of those was actually your largest in and out migration market. So where are you losing people to, and where are you gaining people from? So that was the foundation. And then again, we also wanted to make sure that we were focused on those people that had, or that working age talent that had some level of familiarity. So we also found a strong concentration of alumni and visitors from those markets. But most importantly, we know that Kentucky has a competitive advantage against these states and the markets within those states on a number of those factors that are important to talent. So again, affordability, cost of living, those 2 of those markets are more expensive than Kentucky. The housing availability is not as strong, despite, I'm sure there are concerns in the state in Kentucky that housing is not readily available. But you have to look at it from that competitive positioning, and just Kentucky can compete very, very well on a number of those factors that are important to talent versus those states that you mentioned.
Thank you for that. I was hoping you would mention affordability, and yep. I think this body's aware of our affordable housing crisis here and the impact we can have on that. So thanks quite a bit for that answer.
All right. Next is Representative Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been hearing a lot in the news, and first off, thank you for your presentation. We've been hearing a lot in the news about an exodus from New York. Is that a potential talent market for Kentucky?
It could be. Again, based on our prioritization and indexing of the markets in this first phase, the 7 states that we did conduct the research in, again, we feel are your best bet opportunities currently. However, as should resources allow, obviously, we would love to expand the initiative into other markets. So I think New York was sort of right on the cusp of being in those top 7 markets. So that would make sense as we move into subsequent phases, ideally. to focus on kind of that second wave of markets that we could potentially outreach to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We want to thank you all for your presentation. Hold on, we got one more. All right, Representative Lockett, bring us home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. Just a quick question. When you're looking at the target talent markets and you're looking at the individual states, California is a great example. New York could be a good example. Are you targeting the entire state, or are you targeting individual cities, individual areas? Kind of go into detail about that.
Sure, absolutely. So we did make sure that we were focusing on specific metro areas within those states. We wanted to make sure we had a sufficient quota in some of the larger or specific metro areas, such as the Bay Area, such as Los Angeles, just to make sure, again, we know that those are going to be, just from the scale, but also just relative to that competitive positioning. We know that there are specific metro regions within each of the states that we identified that will provide a greater opportunity. So in the strategy, we will be positioning Kentucky, making sure the messaging resonates specifically with the metro areas that we identified within each of these states.
Very good.
And I would just add that the messaging will be tailored to each state and each metro area, because again, you have different competitive positioning depending on which state we're reaching out to or which metro area we're reaching out to. So the goal is that it's very targeted, so that when somebody sees an ad or sees something on social media, it feels very relevant to them. So that will be a big part of the strategy is the tailoring.
Thank you.
Any other member? All right. Thank you all for your presentation, and really appreciate it. Rob and Patience, thank you all for joining us and taking the time to present.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Our last presenter is the Kentucky Manufacturing Extension Partnership. If you all could come to the table. All right, just a reminder, if you could, make sure to pull your microphones close to you and make sure the green button is on. And if you could, please state your name for the record.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Chairman. My name is Will Metcalf. I'm an Associate Vice President for Research and Innovation at the University of Louisville.
Scott Broughton, Executive Director for the Kentucky Manufacturing Extension Partnership.
Sarah King, Quality Manager at Anderson Forest Products. I'll do that again. Sarah King, Quality Manager at Anderson Forest Products. I'm here representing Josh Anderson, who was unable to join us today due to a death in the family.
Okay. All right, the floor is yours.
Well, again, thank you so much for having us here today. It's a real honor and pleasure to speak to you this morning. So the Kentucky Manufacturing Extension Partnership is dedicated to solving manufacturing problems for Kentucky. Our mission is just that. Let's come together to work with, especially focused on small and medium-sized manufacturers in Kentucky that may not otherwise have access to the quality, world-class services that the Kentucky MEP provides. So think about automation and efficiency technologies, world-class leadership training, development of growth programs, access to capital. Say a small manufacturer like represented by Anderson Forest Products here today needs access to capital to automate or buy new equipment. That's the kind of service that we support. Scott Broughton here today is going to get into some of the details about that. But the vision is really just to strengthen the manufacturing economy across the state. As you all know, manufacturing represents the largest single contributor to the growth of the economy in the state of Kentucky. It's 17% of the total GDP. So it's a really important base to the state. And small and medium-sized manufacturers are the most critical component to that, serving the large manufacturers, supporting families throughout the Commonwealth. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So the stakeholders within the MEP, University of Louisville, obviously where this program resides, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, which supported this program with one-time funds through House Bill 1 last year, and the National Institute of Standards and Technology program. So that's NIST. And there is an MEP in every state throughout the United States of America. They are a little different in every state, depending upon the economic drivers of that state. Obviously, manufacturing is very important in the state of Kentucky, so it's really supported well from the federal government here in Kentucky. And so that's the overview of what the MEP is. I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk a little bit about the regions and the way we break down the service. Again, each region within the state, just like every state across the country, is a little different. So we think about that in the way we design our services. We have people throughout the state dispersed. Our team isn't solely in Louisville. In fact, most of our our team is distributed throughout the state. So, Scott?
So thank you, Mel. I will. We missed a major stakeholder for the way that we do business, and that is the manufacturers across the state themselves. So we work with every manufacturer in all 120 counties, making sure that they can grow and prosper and develop and meet the vision that they actually have to allow them to, employ people, keep the doors open, grow the business, grow the Commonwealth, bring more taxes in. So the way we do that is we do break the state of Kentucky up into 4 regions. Each one of those regions has a specific individual who is responsible for developing those relationships and making sure that the outreach is happening in each one of those regions. Our programming falls into 4 main categories. We really focus on the manufacturers and those problems that those manufacturers have. So our focus truly is the employers, not the employees, okay? When I talk about manufacturers, for the most part, most of those problems are going to fall within one of those 4 categories that we've listed. So either it's a company that has plenty of business, but they need ways to increase their margins. They need ways to operationally be better. Quality systems, production, maintenance, all those different activities that says, I have enough business, I need to make sure that I'm going to keep as much money from that business as possible. Other side of that are those companies that says, I need more business, I need more customers, I need to break into more industries, and that's our innovation and growth. That's anything to do with a company. A manufacturer has to reach out of their organization to identify that dollar bill and bring it back into their organization. That falls within our growth and innovation. But you have some companies that, their problems are not really working within their internal processes, nor is it really trying to find more business. It's more about the workforce itself. Leadership, workforce, and culture, that's work for the companies to ensure that those manufacturers and those supervisors at those facilities know how to manage people, how to build their relationships, build up the culture. The morale is where it needs to be, making sure the leadership team is leading in a way by example to ensure that they're getting the most out of those employees. And that 4th, of course, anything to do with technology. That's a big buzzword we've been hearing for a long time now. But the fact of the matter is we need to expand our horizons through integrating technologies into our operations. And our 4th suite is really helping those companies integrate additive manufacturing, robotics, automation, all those different things that allow them to actually prosper and get into a different spot. So if you get into a little more detail, and again, leadership, workforce, and culture, this can be anything from helping a CEO and a C-suite, supervisory, new to the role, better fulfill the needs of those companies from the standpoint of understanding how they work with those personnel, how they work with their employees, proper onboarding, all those different activities that allow that leadership team to really truly lead by example. We go from automation technologies, again, as I mentioned, automation, robotics, that's really our University of Louisville arm. That is really embracing the technologies at not just U of L, but all the universities across the Commonwealth, making sure that it's accessible to manufacturers across the state, making sure that they know, not just accessible, they need to know how it's going to make their lives different. They really need to understand how it's going to change what they can be doing in the future. The last, growth and innovation, as I mentioned, anything to do with helping a company grow in some meaningful way. That starts off with business strategy, ideation sessions, project management, marketing, website, outreach, in various different ways. A lot of those companies understand, and most will tell you, I want to grow. I need to grow. They have no idea how to do it, though. And our programming is based on, the activities within our team that has been there and done that. when we're going to work with a company, whether it's to help them grow their business or reduce their operating costs, it's because we've been there and done that. We are, well, in my direct team, I have about 16 employees, and they have over 250 years of experience doing just that with clients. We are an organization that comes on company sites and works with those teams, very similar to Sarah, and you'll be hearing from her shortly about how we can actually help them not just change, but sustain that change as we're going forward. Sorry about operation efficiency. The whole idea with that, again, is making sure that the companies understand that they have to have processes in place. They have to have systems in place to allow the standard operating plans and all those different things that allow a company to maintain as much money as they possibly can as they are working with their clients. Our proof that we're having impact, well, we've had a little over $700 million as clients have reported in the last 5 years with the activities that the MEP program has done with them. That's a little over $90 million in total cost savings, a little over $270 million in new investment, $350 million in total sales. These are not numbers that I'm telling you. These are numbers that our clients have told a third party that was hired by another entity who passes that information down to us. So in other words, this isn't me calling every friend that I have and trying to get some numbers out of them. It doesn't work that way. We are a very impact-oriented organization. The heat map you see on the right, at least my right, those are our clients that we've worked with in the last 5 years. We cover the entire state. Our focus is Kentucky. Our focus is specific and not just Kentucky, but manufacturers in Kentucky. That is my background. That is my team's background. That's something we really care about. Obviously, we have lots of success stories. You can read just as well as I can, so I don't see any reason to read through those success stories. But you can go to our website, and there's 40, 60, I don't remember how many we have at this point, but a lot. Those success stories are based on our clients and the work we've done with them, making sure that it's, again, around some type of a number. We've helped them reduce their costs. We've helped them grow our business, break into a new market, help them reduce their qualities, all kinds of different activities to help them truly understand. Now, there's been several initiatives we've been doing over the last several years, but specifically, and one of the reasons why we are here is two initiatives. One is the manufacturing expos that we've been doing, and we are getting ready to do our 13th one in Bowling Green on December 9th. These expos are across the state, and they really, again, focus on manufacturers. When I say focus on manufacturers, we all know that manufacturers are not that easy to pull out of their shops. They have higher priorities. We have helped them see that these expos, when we put them on, are the highest priority that they have. What I mean by that is we normally have between 120 and 140 participants for each one of these expos. We force no less than 80% of those participants to be physical manufacturers. They're coming to these events because they want to meet other manufacturers to help them grow. They're not coming there to meet myself or my team or Will. They're coming to meet people like Sarah. They're coming there to ensure that if they're looking to grow their business in some way, that they have somebody they can look to from a supply chain standpoint. We are giving them that vehicle to allow them to connect with other manufacturers across the state, both big, small, and everything in between. As you can see from some of the numbers, we've had some great success. We are going to have these all throughout the next year, and this is in conjunction with the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. And again, I know you guys have this in front of you. I see no reason to read it, but the fact of the matter is we have some great successes of the participants for the expos themselves. The participants have overtly stated that they're coming to meet manufacturers. The fact of the matter is any one of those participants, if it take them a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, that they don't have any of that to meet even a fraction of the amount of manufacturers they're going to have when they come to those expos. The other, and in my opinion, one of the more important elements we have going across the state right now is we have the supply chain database. We all know about supply chain and the importance of it. This is our answer. This is Kentucky's answer. This is, again, in conjunction with the Kentucky Cabinet, and this is going to be a database that is going to be up to date and that will be open to the public of manufacturers early next year. And we say, well, it's a database. There's lots of databases. Well, not like this one. This one is going to be up to date. This is one that will be correct from the standpoint of having accounts and contacts and all that kind of stuff like that. And you say, well, Scott, how do you know that for sure? So this database is an extension of my personal Salesforce as an organization. I have 40 some odd individuals that are part of the team that are daily updating this. Back in the day when at least some of us were kids, going to work for some employer and staying there for your life wasn't all that uncommon. Today, 10, 12 is the average. I know a lot of people that have switched jobs 3 times in the last year and a half alone. Our database keeps track of that kind of stuff. Our database keeps it up to date, making sure that when you have a manufacturer saying, hey, I need to have someone who can do this widget, they have a source that they can get, and they can actually get contacts and accounts and all that kind of stuff like that, allow them to really truly grow their business in some meaningful way. This will only be for manufacturers. This is not meant for people to get laundry lists of people and call them and bug the heck out of them. The fact of the matter is this is for manufacturers to grow their business through other manufacturing interactions and activities. So the other big element here is we have this capital equipment match program. This is a program that is an appropriation that you allowed last year. It started actually July 1st of 2024. Our first year, you can see in the red, you can see that the return on investment was 12.5, and I apologize, there's a typo there that should say 12.5 M for million. So we had $12.5 million. From an ROI standpoint, that did create 120 jobs. That meant that every dollar that we provided them through this grant, they, being the client, the company, the manufacturer, provided a little over $5. And again, you can read the numbers just as well as I can. But the interesting aspect here is, okay, we just started. This just started July of last year. So since July of this year, which is our second year, so from July 1st to October 31st, we have already created $8.8 million in return on investment. We've already created 135 jobs. And for every dollar spent on this grant, there's been a little over $15 provided by the manufacturers. And we're, again, just getting started. I mean, the fact of the matter is there's very few, and we're all businessmen and women here, from an ROI standpoint, not bad. And again, this is pretty good stuff from that standpoint as well. And when you think about 2-year of impacts, we've had over 100 applications. We've had 41 awards. That has been in 31 counties. You can see that we are both in rural as well as urban. Again, pretty strong impacts as they've been getting reported to us from our clients themselves. And I can't stress enough that we're not even a year and a half yet. I mean, this program really just started. We're still getting our feet underneath us, and it's going bonkers for us with your help, because the fact is this would not happen without the funding that you provided to us. I'm going to pass it over to Sarah here. She'll introduce herself and talk a little bit about the program that she partnered with us for.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. As the quality manager for Anderson Forest Products located in South Central Kentucky, I'm here to spend a few moments sharing with you who we are, what we do, and what the Catalyst Equipment Matching Grant has done for us. To put the bottom line up front, this grant is allowing us to be more efficient, produce more, and create 4 new jobs. Last but not least, it opens up the door to take on more business in the future instead of turning it away like we did last year. Anderson Forest has been in business in Kentucky since 1967. Over the past 58 years, we've grown from a simple sawmill with 15 employees to an advanced manufacturing operation with close to 100 employees in Kentucky and an additional 100 employees at our facility in Mexico. Production at our Kentucky plant helps to feed the plant in Mexico, creating more work opportunities here at home. We manufacture pallets and cable reels, also called spools. The majority of our business is nailed wooden reels that range in size from 3 feet across to 8 feet across. The bulk of our customers are wire and cable companies in the telecommunications industry. In 2024, we saw our customers shift away from plywood reels and focus more heavily on our nailed wood division. The wooden reels are more labor-intensive to make, and we ended up turning down some business opportunities because we simply did not have the production capacity. If you aren't growing, then you're falling behind. Our company president decided to invest in automated equipment to increase our production capacity so we wouldn't have to turn down new business in the future. With the Catalyst Equipment Matching Grant funds, we purchased a one-of-a-kind, state-of-the-art automated flange nailing machine. This equipment runs on robotics, and it arranges the lumber in the correct pattern and then nails the boards into place. When I say one-of-a-kind, I really mean it. Ours is the only machine we know of in existence that can do what we needed it to do. Our company president worked with the engineers from the very beginning of the design process on what the machine needed to do and ideas on how to make it happen. It's important to note this new machine did not take away any existing jobs. Instead, it created 4 new jobs, 3 of which are skilled labor jobs. The 4th is a moderate level position for a lumber grader, which is a step up from the manual labor job of using a nail gun 8 hours a day. Without this particular machine, adding a new production line would have required 4 people in manual labor jobs. The new machine allows this line to be a 2-person operation that produces more than the manual line can. It decreased our cycle time and increased our throughput, meaning we're operating more efficiently and can get more product out the door. Now I'd like to share some efficiency metrics with you. Based on the machine engineer's vision for this one-of-a-kind machine, we expected it to reduce our product cycle time by 30%. We're pleased to report that it meets expectations for our smallest products. However, we are thrilled to report that it exceeds expectations for our larger product sizes. This robotic machine reduced our small 3-foot product cycle time by 30%, as expected. On our 3.5-foot product, it reduced the cycle time by an unprecedented 58%. It reduced our 4.5-foot cycle time by 44%, which still exceeds our wildest expectations. These metrics are an absolute game changer for us. With this competitive advantage, we plan to take on between 30 and 50% more business in our wood and reel division next year, instead of turning it away like we did last year. Earlier, I mentioned that this new machine created 4 new jobs. We've discussed 2 so far to actually run the machine. The other 2 are needed at other workstations to keep up with our new production capacity. These 2 operators will run CNC machines on a second shift during the busy season to keep up with demand. These 2 additional jobs are already created, the operators have already been trained on their new machines, and they are already earning a higher wage. We are so grateful that we were chosen to be recipients of the Catalyst Equipment Matching Grant. We invested over $1 million in this new machine, and the $200,000 we received as a grant reimbursement was essential in making this happen. Regarding return on investment, we expect to make back the $200,000 in payroll savings in just over 3 years. The grant really has been a catalyst for positive change in our business as far as efficiency and new job creation. It is not lost on us that these funds are provided by the taxpayers, and we are honored to increase the number of skilled jobs in the Commonwealth. Small communities like Monroe County rely heavily on these manufacturing jobs. We're pleased to offer not just more jobs, but better jobs that pay more. Thank you for your time and attention.
So it's worth mentioning that this Catalyst Equipment Match program, as mentioned, it provides up to $200,000, 50 cents on a dollar reimbursement. So they have to spend the money before they're going to get it. We have a very, very robust program involved on approval processes, and that does involve going in front of an unbiased committee, and they have the power to say no, these people don't deserve it. So if there's a company that actually wants to make the investment but hasn't really proven that they can handle it, or they don't have a strategy on what they're going to be doing with it, they won't get the money. Just because it's available, just because you can, doesn't necessarily mean you will get it. So we've put a very robust program together for the purpose of making sure that those who receive it deserve it. And more importantly, they're going to do something with it, which is a big part of it. As I mentioned, state appropriation for us started July 1st of 2024. If we look in the impacts through the state appropriation that the Kentucky MEP has received since July 1st of 2024 through October 1st of 2025, and again, these numbers are not coming from me. They're coming from our clients, who reported to a third party, who reported to actually NIST, who gave it back to us in a report. It's not like I could change it, okay? $17 million, a little over $17 million in total cost savings, a little over $38 million in new investment, a little over $96 million retained in increased sales, and this has impacted 623 jobs. We have impacted and worked with 342 manufacturers since July 1st of 2024. We have worked with 77 non-manufacturers that actually are associated around the ring of a manufacturer. We have had a little under $153 million in impacts through the state appropriation in the since July 1st of 2024. So from our standpoint, this has been a fantastic way for us to ensure that the manufacturers across the state have access, and more importantly, they can hit some of the vision that's going to allow them to grow and allow us all to be prosperous. Thank you.
All right, we do have some members with questions. Senator Maiden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, what is the total appropriation in the last budget cycle, and how many employees do you all have that administer the program, and approximately how much have you loaned out, or are you loaning out every year?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Senator. So the state appropriation, the match, there's $1.3 million 2 years, over a year for over 2 years. So to match the federal appropriation, which is $1.3 million from NIST. And then there's a $4 million appropriation for the Catalyst Equipment Match Program. The number of employees we have to administer the Catalyst Equipment Match Program is one. He's sitting in the audience. It's Jeff Green over here. So we try to keep our overhead as low as possible to deploy as much capital out to the companies as we can. So again, keep that administration really low. And this is part of the plan, right, to leverage the NIST program, which already has a lot of the administrative infrastructure in place, like the database, the survey tools, all the stuff that you saw today. The total employees that the MEP program has, it'll vary from day to day because you know how the job market is. But I think we're at 13. 16 today. And so that's where we are as of right now. So
that's very good numbers. That's what we like to see. Most of those grants and stuff get put out there, and there's so much administration in it. But that's great to hear. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great question, Representative Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question concerns capital investment. Is for getting private institutions to give an influx of capital investment. Has there been issues or problems with our manufacturers getting that?
Yeah, so I mean, if I understand your question correctly, Representative, access to capital broadly, that either that's through debt financing or venture capital or private equity. There certainly are tools and systems in place to facilitate that, and we do work with those partners as part of the Catalyst Equipment Match Program. For example, if you're buying $1 million piece of equipment, the grant will only reimburse $200,000, so you have to finance the rest of it. So we have financial institutions that will work with us to support that. That said, capital markets vary, right? So from time to time, it could be, access to venture capital could be difficult, but debt financing is better, or vice versa. There has been a lot of private equity coming into the state recently. We view that as sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing, and so it depends on kind of where you are and in the ecosystem. So Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but hopefully that answers your question, Senator, Representative.
So several of the recipients actually went through SBA for SBA loans, as an example. But the fact of the matter is, when I'm out and I'm talking to manufacturers, the number one problem they have with growing a business is that they have to have an investment that they just can't do. So many of these, and that's part of our criteria, is if they're going to buy the equipment anyways, they don't really need the grant. So we're really looking for those manufacturers that need some help, some support. Otherwise, they wouldn't grow in a way that the vision is. And, folks, I mean, if we have somebody that has the vision and has everything other than some money, this is an opportunity for them to really compound that and make something great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for your presentation. I want to thank all of our presenters today for excellent presentations. Members, thank you all for all your time during this interim. Co-Chair Wheeler, any final words?
Chair, I'd just like to thank our staff for helping us through this interim. I think it's been a very productive discussion, a lot of variety of opinions and ideas on how to grow our economy in the Commonwealth. I want to thank our presenters today. It was some very interesting information and some insight, I think, as to how we make our state more business friendly and more competitive in the national economy. So thank you for your leadership, Co-Chair Branscombe, and I enjoyed working with you this session.
All right. Members, thank you all once again. There being no further business, we are adjourned.